Every entrepreneur has a story. Welcome to Happy Half Hour with an Entrepreneur, where each episode your host, Brian Carney, will share a drink with a successful business owner and have them discuss their unique journey, gaining insight on what it takes to be an entrepreneur and the different ways to get there. Brian isn't just a beer nerd, he's also the co-founder of River's Edge Advisors, a financial planning firm headquartered in Delaware, specializing in working with business owners. It's time to pour yourself a drink and enjoy a happy half hour with an entrepreneur.
My guest today is Don Blue. Don and his brother Bob and sister Amy own a very successful plant nursery in Centerton, New Jersey. Centerton is a third-generation family business that was started in 1974 by Don's grandparents, Ray and Marlene. The business is firmly committed to working exclusively with privately owned independent garden centers throughout North America. When the business originally started, there were fewer than 12 greenhouses and they only grew 2 different types of plants. Now, the business grows over 1,600 different plants and sells them to 900 unique dealers in 32 states. For our conversation, I'm going to be drinking a beer from one of my favorite breweries, Stone Brewing in San Diego, California. FML, which stands for Fear Movie Lions, is an unfiltered double IPA that's on the stronger side with an ABV of 8.5%. Although Don does enjoy beer, he loves bourbon, and he's going to be drinking a 10-year-old Whistle Pig on the rocks. And with that, welcome, Don. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So the easiest place to start is tell me a little bit about your business and how you got started.
Well, how we got started was a long story, but condensed down. So my namesake, Donald McAllister, actually, not to mess up your intro there, but Don McAllister actually started Centerton Nursery. It was a hobby farm in his backyard.
Oh, really?
Don named it and started the company and everything. And there was, a couple greenhouses. And my grandfather bought the couple greenhouses and leased the land and bought the inventory.
Huh.
When Don was diagnosed with cancer and he was looking for a little bit of money to leave for his wife.
Interesting. So is that who you're named after?
That's who I'm named after.
That's pretty crazy.
Yes. So he's actually the one who started, quote unquote, started Centerton Nursery.
Yeah.
But obviously it's, it's really Ray and Marlene's baby.
Yeah.
So yeah, they started the company in 1974. My father got involved in 1979. We kind of have grown it up. I graduated college from Del Val College in 2001.
Yep.
And at the time, things were good. It was good for it was a good business for 2 people. And I said, well, we got to grow this and another mouth to feed on this company. And
yeah,
so we grew the business. And then 2 years later, my brother graduated from Penn State, degree in ag business, came back to the family business. And I said, well, let's grow it again. Then shortly after that, 3 years after that, my sister, who couldn't find a job, came back to work here. And we kept telling her, go find a job, go do something, something. She graduated from Loyola Marymount in California with a degree in communications.
Okay.
Well, that's not a farming degree,
Sure.
Back here for this. And we actually, she worked here for about 9 months and she continued to look for jobs, but we had an opening in our sales, in-house sales department. And we asked her if she wanted to take that. And she's grabbed onto that and taken the bull by the horns, wrestled it to the ground, stomped on it, threw it over her back shoulder, and she owns that puppy now. So,
all because her older brothers tried to get her to go somewhere else.
Yes, yeah.
So obviously you go to Del Val, your brother goes to Penn State, and you both study farming. So, was it a foregone conclusion that both of you were going into the family business, or is this something you wanted to do? How did that work? Yeah,
I was the only one. I was the only one that went away to college and knew exactly so real quick story. My my senior year of high school, my grandfather said, we're driving around the nursery here. And he says to me, well, what are you going to do next year? And I said, well, I'm coming to work. I'm like, I'm ready, I'm coming to make money. And I was probably tickled pink having, making $7 an hour.
Sure. Yeah.
Whatever,
It's a ton of money when you're 18.
Yeah. I mean, I was like all gung ho. And he says, that's good. It's good. He said, I'm ready for you to get here. That's great. And then he kind of changed his tune a little bit. And he says, well, what if something happens though? I mean, the nursery business, he said, last couple of years have been pretty rough, actually. I mean, it's been tough. He said, what happens if this thing goes under? He said, then what are you going to do? He said, then the only thing you have to go on is my word that you were a good worker or whatever. He's like, I don't know. He said, I think if I were you, I'd probably just go. I'll get you into Del Valle. He had connections there.
Yeah.
He said, I'll get you in there and just go and get your piece of paper. That's all you got to do. Just get the piece of paper. So that's what I did. So he did me he did me a solid and he kind of screwed me a little bit too here. But and the solid was he made me go away to college, which was just a super experience. And a wise man told me that you're going to learn more in college from the other people in college than you are from college itself, which was
fair point.
Yeah, very good truth. Where he screwed me a little bit is he just told me just go get the piece of paper, which is exactly what I did. I didn't do any more than that above that.
Yeah.
I went away to come back here. My brother didn't really know what he wanted to do. I think till probably his senior year, he kind of came around to the fact that that's exactly what he wants to do.
Yeah.
My sister had no clue to that she wanted to come back, and basically until she was here.
So tell me a little bit about what your role is every day at Centerton Nursery. What do you do exactly?
So honestly or funnily?
I would say honestly at first.
So honestly, I'm in charge of running the business itself. Okay.
Yeah.
My heart is in production.
Okay.
So, I want to be growing the plants. Where are we expanding? How do we make things faster? How do we make things better? How do we, do things smooth?
Yeah. Is that sort of like the logistics behind growing? Is that kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, growing is a science, right? So you have that. There's a science to it, and then there's just a whole lot of common sense things that have to all play in to make the puzzle pieces fit.
Yeah.
The joke of what I do every day, which is more serious than this joke, is I run around all day and put out fires, which is
right.
Pretty much what I do. So, I mean, we have lots of different production areas, and we have lots of different sides of the business because we're growing plants all the way from herbs and vegetables up to 3-gallon shrubs and roses. And there's a whole lot of things in between. And each one of those kind of has their area of their assistant manager area that is doing that. And kind of, I'm just the big picture person and making it all funneled down through the same funnel.
Yeah. So when we started, we said that Centerton Nursery started with basically 2 greenhouses. How many do you have now? You grow 1,600 plants, but do you have any idea how many greenhouses you have now?
I haven't added it up in quite a while. I know we're building 35 new ones right now, somewhere between 200 and 300. But I do have this number down. We have 3.2 million square feet of growing area.
Wow, that's crazy.
So
when you talk to your family about the generations before that have run the business, it seems to me, and I'm inferring here, but that the business really started to grow once you got involved. Is that fair, or is that
worth 3.75 times the size as when I graduated college?
Yeah. So what do you owe that success to?
It was just a lot of it was being in the right place at the right time. I mean, we wanted to grow. Our customers wanted us to grow. And you're saying grow. no pun intended, right? We were just, a lot of it was being in the right place at the right time, putting the right people in the right places. I'm not a guy that's going to sit here and beat my own drum. I mean, we have a really good team of people, and they've all just come together and made it work. We're fairly young crew.
Yeah.
Bobby and Amy are both younger than me. Our operations manager is 2 years younger than I am. She's in her late 30s. Our production manager is in his mid 30s. We're young, we're hungry, we're trying to stay on the cutting edge of the business or of the industry.
Yeah.
And we're looking for, we're trying to stay up with the trends and do what we can do. And, we've got a great group of people together, and everybody works together to do it. And then, we have legacy employees too. I mean, we have people here that, that are working out in the nursery that started with my grandfather, been here 30, 40 years.
Amazing. That really is amazing. So you mentioned, so you like the production and the growing part. Your sister Amy crushes it in the sales group. What does your brother Bob do?
My brother kind of focuses on sales and marketing. We have a consumer-based website. We have another website that's basically directed right to our customers, which that doesn't mean anything in the consumer world. It's, a lot of scientific names and things like that. But we do strive a lot to keep up our consumer website for anybody who wants to buy our brands. And then we have a yearly catalog and a yearly calendar, and every single plant that leaves out of here has got a big color label on it with tons of information. Because we found that the gardeners are not as educated as they were 15 and 20 years ago. They don't know that much about plants. They don't know that much about gardening, and we try to give them as much information as we can, and then back that up with a website too. Especially this year with COVID, the Googling of just gardening was up,
sure,
hundreds and hundreds of % this year.
Yeah,
trying to grow their own crops.
Yeah, I was going to say, so actually, since you bring up COVID, how did the pandemic affect your business?
We sat around here for the first month of it and did absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, just
trying to figure out what's going on.
We should have been shipping stuff out the door at a super steady rate the month of March. And I mean, it was just dribs and drabs of somebody needs a couple of these, somebody needs a couple of this. And, we were shipping out one trailer load. We should have been shipping out 30 and 40.
Sure. Yeah.
And, to the point where you were scratching our heads, like, I don't know, do we go look for jobs or what? Like, what do we do? What do we do? Luckily, we kind of put our nose to the grindstone and tried to figure out ways to, spread the word of gardening and the positive attributes of it. We took a lot of plants and to all of the local hospitals here in Southern New Jersey, and we brought plants there to give away to the healthcare workers, and got it on the news and in the newspapers and things like that. And, basically just trying to say, like, plants don't get COVID, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's a safe thing, And
if you're home, maybe you can do a garden.
Right.
Yeah.
Luckily
in the spring.
Yeah. Luckily, I mean, after some time, and it took some time, but after some time, we were able to, our garden center customers were able to open based on local laws or state laws. And the big thing was the whole time that they were supposed to be closed, Lowe's and Home Depot were allowed to be open. And
crazy.
They just, a lot of them fought that battle and just, this is not right. How can they be open, but we're not allowed to be,
Yeah. Did any of your customers not survive the pandemic for that very reason?
I don't think so. We haven't noticed any yet.
That's good.
Pretty much all of them at some point in time were allowed to open.
Yeah.
We had some customers, Midwest especially, Michigan was really bad. Illinois, they weren't a lot of those guys weren't allowed to open till the end of May. Well, most of the season's over.
Yeah.
Luckily, there were enough people at that point in time that were still looking for product that I think they did okay, and the ones that were able to open early did fantastic.
Right. Well, it's interesting. The one thing I find fascinating about your business is that you're used to dealing with how revenue can be impacted by the unexpected. Obviously, no one expects a pandemic, but talk a little bit about how dependent upon your entire revenue is based upon what happens with the weather. I mean, that's about as unpredictable as it gets. To try to have to manage that, that's got to be kind of crazy.
Yeah. So, COVID had something to do with that too.
Yeah.
I've never in my life heard so many of my customers say every day is a Saturday.
Yeah.
And that never existed in our industry.
Right.
The garden centers relied on Friday afternoon, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yep.
And what our job was to get an order for them on Monday, Tuesday, and before Friday, get that product delivered to sell that weekend, and then do it all over again.
Yep.
And that was our job, doing that every single week.
Yep.
Now this year it was not that way. If the weather was good, garden centers are out in the open.
Yeah. That's a great place to go.
If it's raining, nobody's going to the garden center.
Right.
So if we have, a rainy Mother's Day weekend, that could impact our business 30% for the year.
That's insane. So when you start getting around, 10, 15 days out for Mother's Day weekend, you start just checking the weather every single day?
Yeah, we get hives.
I mean, how could you not? Because literally talk about running a business on something that you literally have absolutely no control over. You can't control if it's going to be 40 and rainy in New Jersey in May.
No. Now, I will tell you this. There was a big difference when I graduated college, 2001, we were shipping to 7 states.
Right.
Mid-Atlantic.
Good point. Yeah.
Now, I mean, we go all the way out. Our farthest to the west and south is Houston, Texas, all the way up, through Chicago into Milwaukee and Green Bay.
Right.
So when you spread out that far, your chances of bad weather.
You're diversifying amongst your weather.
Over the eastern half of the U.S. at the same time is limited.
That's a great point. That is a good point. Still has to be a little bit stressful though.
It is.
So the one thing, obviously, we're talking about garden centers. You guys have made the conscious decision to not really deal with the big box stores, and you're firmly dedicated to those independent garden centers. How did you decide to really build your business around them?
We started out with independents, and we got into it, and we were approached several times by the big boxes, and there's so many of them out there. I mean, there's local grocery store chains that that have big numbers. Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, Kmart, even Sears had some stuff back in the day. But we just never made the jump. Thankful that we didn't, and really, I mean, those decisions that happened back then, when they really could have happened, was on my dad and my grandfather. That was on their watch, really.
Yeah.
And we finally just coined ourselves as, we're going to grow something that they can't go buy at Lowe's and Home Depot. We're going to be the grower for the independent. And we even had a slogan to think outside of the box.
That's great. Well, you're really proving that it shows, and it's a super responsible thing from a marketing perspective to niche up and really just focus on one niche and drive it home and do extremely well in that niche, because you can't be all things to all people.
Well, it's a different market altogether.
Yeah.
The Lowe's and Home Depot customers, I mean, they're trying to, Lowe's and Home Depot, they take their product and they tell them, okay, this is what I want to pay for it, and I need you to cut off 25 cents and make it only look like you cut off 10 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. We're the opposite of that. We're trying to add 10 cents to make it look like we added 25 cents.
Right. Yeah.
But it's a completely different market. Okay. The quality has to be of the highest quality. The marketing has to be there. We just hear so many times, I bought such and such at Lowe's and Home Depot and it died. They're growing for the sale. They're not growing for that master gardener or the gardener that knows exactly what they're looking for, the latest, greatest, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're trying to turn out, just huge numbers, without any real idea of, how many of this can the masses actually use,
Yep. Yeah, I get it. That makes a ton of sense. So I like to ask this question to people. So if you could go back in time and visit yourself when you were, say, 23, 25, and, a 40-something Don Blue goes back to the guy barely making it through college, trying to get that piece of paper, or maybe even to like 25, what advice would you have given to yourself if you could go back in time and do that?
By Google.
Good. That's good. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard for me to answer that question. I am one of these guys who I have this idea in my head that now let me stop. I've made mistakes.
Yeah.
But I have very, very little regrets.
Mm-hmm.
Every mistake I made has, changed me in some way, and in some form, and they're all learning experiences. And
yeah.
I don't know how you go through life without some of them. I mean, the first time we walk, we're going to fall. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's a great point because, the old saying is there are no failures. There's only learning experiences. And I think that really comes into play a lot when you run a business for as long as you have.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the interesting thing is how my grandfather brought me up in that too. They allowed that my grandparents, my father, they allowed us to make mistakes. They knew we were going to make a mistake.
So they let you touch the hot stove.
Yeah.
So it goes to
as long as it didn't cost too much.
So that's pretty interesting. So they see you going down a road and they know that you're making a mistake, but they didn't stop you.
Yeah, of course, then, and that happened several times.
Yeah.
But then what's really exciting was times when my grandfather says, I don't think it's going to work. We tried that before and it didn't work. Well, just because it didn't work 20 years ago doesn't mean it doesn't work today.
It's a good point.
Okay. And I mean, now we're seeing things happen so fast. Okay. You mentioned to me, in your intro, we were growing two types of plants. Centerton Nursery sells 1,500 different SKUs now.
Yeah.
We can't do business the same way we did 45 years ago. We can't do business the same way we did 20 years ago.
You have to evolve.
What we've seen happen this year, we can't do business the way we did business last year.
Right.
You have to evolve. You have to change. If you're not, you're dying.
Yeah. That's a huge point there, because I think a lot of places it's the old, you're either growing or you're dying. And if you're not adapting to what's going on around you, you're going to get left behind.
If you're not growing, you're dying. If you're just sitting still, you're dying.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything else is going up around you.
Well, I was going to ask about, I'm sure you've seen the statistics about a third generation business, and we've talked about it a little bit. I think the statistics for a family business surviving into the second generation is only 30%. And then only 12% of businesses are viable into the third generation. So, and I've talked to many people over the course of the time where you deal with two different age groups. So, what are we, Gen Xers? You have Gen Xers dealing with baby boomers.
Right.
And there's that difference there. So how were you able to, for lack of a better way to explain it, convince your dad and your grandfather that they were wrong or they should do something a little bit different, even though they've done it a different way their entire lives?
Well, you've met my grandfather, but for those of you who haven't, he's never going to, he thought he was wrong once, but he was mistaken. You're never going to prove to him that, he was wrong or you were right or whatever. And that's not the point of it. If you're trying to back yourself out of a business at a certain point in time, you have to say, let me see where this goes. Let him run on the leash, and the leash gets longer, and the leash gets longer, and the leash gets longer.
Before the snapback happens, yeah.
Yeah, and then every once in a while you'll hear this thing, from the other desk here in my office from my grandfather. That seemed to work out okay, huh? I was like, yeah, it worked out fantastic. He goes, yeah, it worked out okay. Yeah.
That's great. The other interesting thing about a family business is, I have two brothers. If I had to work with them every single day, I'm not sure how well that would go. I love them to death, but working together every day, how is it working with your siblings on a daily basis?
So, you ever hear? This is a really interesting thing, because you ever hear about these people, and I'm one of them. Okay, I have two kids. You have three, right?
Yep.
Not two of them are ever alike.
It's true.
Ever.
It's very true. Totally different.
Amy, Bobby, and I are the same thing.
Yeah.
I have now. I'm sure that all of us could do one of the other's jobs or whatever, but you do what you love. You do what you enjoy. You do what comes easy to you. And what do they say? You never work a day in your life if you love what
enjoy what you do. Yeah.
And Bobby's, he has his area of the business. I have my area of the business. Amy has hers. It's a big enough operation. We have 130 employees.
Right.
So we each have our area that we focus on. And it keeps us out of each other's hair. I mean, most mornings, I'm sitting in my brother's office and, hey, what's going on? What happened yesterday? And anytime any of us are having problems, we get together for a sounding board, or, hey, what do you think about this? I did this yesterday. It worked out good. And we do quite a bit of communication between us, but probably no more or no less than I do with my other managers in the business too. Everybody has their area, but we're all together here for the common goal, right? We're all here for the same thing, including all of our employees.
Yeah. So that's interesting that you were able to create an environment. I believe so. The book Good to Great calls it unique ability, where you guys are able to concentrate on what you do the best and let other people delegate those responsibilities that you're not good at to other people.
Well, between the three of us, we didn't make that happen. That happened organically.
That's great.
My father, who was much more into the marketing side of it, and how are we going to brand our products and market them and things like that. That was, my father was into that. My brother found that interesting, and when he came in, he started with that. I was interested in the production side and the business side of it, and that's what I started in when I got here.
Yeah.
More my grandfather's realm in the company. And I don't think Amy, if you went back however many years you said, and asked Amy, what she would do or what advice she would give, I don't think she'd have any idea that she was going to be running sales and have 10 different sales reps under her and 3 customer service representatives in the office. And she ever would have thought that in a million years, but she's good at it.
Right. That's great that all worked out. So one of the questions I have, kind of an odd question, but legislation is changing drastically, even potentially at the federal level. Have you guys given any consideration to growing marijuana?
I haven't thought about it longer than no.
Okay.
I don't have an interest in it. I do believe that there are some people who, if they got involved at the right time early on, can make decent money. I think it's fairly lucrative to start. The problem is what we're seeing in California, Colorado, Oregon, these places, whether it be recreational or whether it be Medical going out of business because they just licensed too many growers. There's too much product, and they all of a sudden now they have these big, giant, super expensive
right. Yeah.
And it's become, it's become a real problem. My big no's were, I don't have an interest in it.
Yeah.
And I really don't want to do anything that's more regulated with the federal government than what we're already doing.
It's a fair point.
The pen is mightier than the sword. They can put you out of business overnight.
Yeah.
One law, one ruling, one anything. Now, I don't know how much the listeners out there know about growing plants and things like that, but marijuana is not meant to grow this far north.
Gotcha.
We need a lot of light, a lot of heat, a lot of big, expensive greenhouses.
Yeah.
If the feds ever said, hey, we're opening this thing up, and with a pen stroke, you can take commercially grown marijuana across state lines.
Yeah.
Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, they'll put everybody outside of those states out of business overnight.
Yeah, so it's not even environmentally feasible, and it's not really what you do. So there's no use in you spending time on it.
You can go to Texas and New Mexico and grow in the field.
Yeah, I mean, that does make a ton of sense.
No facility, nothing.
Stick with what you do.
That's where we're at. We're sticking with what we know.
I mean, that's how you've been successful so far. So why change that? So one question that's sort of two ends. If you look back on your career, what would you say your lowest point is? And the flip side, what's the point that you're most proud of? Can you point to one time in your career where you go, this was the worst? So it wasn't really a bad point in our career, but it felt rough to me. Again, I started here back full time after I graduated college, 2001. Things were pretty good for a little while there. And then, was it like 2008, 2009 when the housing bubble burst there? Right. Yeah.
And, I was still pretty green, but I wanted to grow. Just about that time, my brother and my sister were both in, but again, they were super green, and as was I. And, we were doing things, and we're like, what can we do to increase our sales? And we try new things and try adding this and adding that and doing different things here. And we ended up with a flat result. And then the next year let's try to do this and try to do that and try to do this. And we ended up with a flat result. And we did that for like 3 or 4 years. And I said, I don't know. It's very disheartening after 3 or 4 years in a row. You're trying to grow this business, and we just couldn't grow it. We couldn't get results.
Yeah.
Which included trying to get results in profit too.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, once we were in that economic downturn, and once that thing kind of let loose, we were going 10, 15% increase that year. Then the next year was 20% increase, and then another 15 or 20. And it's just been on a very upward trend, ever since then. And what we didn't realize at the time was trying to do all these new things. We were kind of molding our company or molding our business or molding our brands for what was upcoming. And the market just hadn't said okay yet.
Yeah.
And then finally, once people started, got back into their houses and less foreclosures and everything else, and it took off, we were there, we were ready. We did all this new stuff. We had it all. And,
yep.
And we were just ready for that point in time. But I do remember back then, it was very disheartening trying to increase, and we were just ending up with flat. Now, in hindsight,
you were on the right path.
When you talk to other people, They were like, you were flat back then?
Yeah.
Oh, God. We were way down. We were coming, and we never went down. We were literally flat.
I remember the old saying was flat is the new up.
Flat's the new up. Right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what we were doing. But it was just very, very disheartening to be in that and trying your damnedest to not be that. But we could not get it to grow. We just couldn't. And the market just wasn't ready.
Yeah. Most companies don't really like to put money into marketing or new strategies when things are going south as far as the economy is concerned. So kind of doubling down when the economy's going into the crapper, you'd be able to double down and start investing in it. Obviously that paid on the other side. To your point, really tough to see it when it's happening and you're in the soup. But obviously that paid off well.
Hindsight's 2020. When you're in it, it's about 25.
Yeah, great point. So if you look at the business overall, what do you think the end game is for it? What would you like to see happen to the business? Go into generation 4 or something completely different?
Yeah, you know what? I don't know. It was, I was never forced. My brother and my sister were never forced to come into the business. I had a job here in high school and through college or whenever I wanted. I had a job here if I wanted it.
Right.
But I wasn't paid. I wasn't paid as anything more than some green kid that didn't know anything.
Yeah, you're paid for your experience.
Yeah. So, I had a job if I wanted it. I knew that I wanted to come back and do this. I grew up right here next to the nursery. I had the biggest backyard of any kid ever had. So I spent a lot of time in the backyard. But that being said, it's not the easiest industry. It's not. Most self-employed businesses aren't 9-to-5 jobs, but this one's really not. In the springtime, there's around a 2-month period that we're working 100 hours plus.
Wow.
We're putting, we were talking about weather. I mean, we put a lot on the line. We're dealing with a perishable product that can only be sold in a very small window. I mean, if you put the nursery business down into a business plan and for money, they'd be like, you're out of your mind, kid. No way we'd ever do this for you.
Right.
And somehow at the end of the year, we make it work out.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
I don't know what's going to happen with the next generation, and we'll have to address that someday. My brother has a 11-year-old and an 8-year-old. My daughter has a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I have a 11-year-old and a 6-year-old. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is there's room in these businesses. You don't have to be a farmer. You don't have to want to get on a tractor. You don't have to be good at growing plants to be in this family business.
Right.
There's lots of different attributes. There's sales, there's marketing, there's purchasing, there's office people, there's tons of outside people. So we'll see what happens. I mean, so far, I think we've only got one farmer up and coming, which is my son. He's the only one that wants anything to do with trucks and tractors. And
yeah,
6 years old, he can run a backhoe, he can drive a tractor, he can do all that stuff already. It's just too early for us to know if that next generation is going to want to be involved or not.
Yeah, lots can change, as Amy has proven.
A lot can change, and we just won't know. Bobby and Amy we've sat down, we've talked about it, and we have agreed that, hey, there's jobs here for them, but if they want to be an owner and they want to be a serious part of this, it's not for everybody, and they have to know that they got to want it, or we won't make that mistake.
Yep. Well, that's great. So thank you so much for your time today. I absolutely enjoyed it. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Don's business, check out their website at centertonnursery.com and be sure to support your local independent garden centers. Don, thanks again for your time. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Happy Half Hour with an Entrepreneur, sponsored by River's Edge Advisors. For more information on how River's Edge Advisors can help you, visit their website at riversedgeadvisors.com. If you'd like to connect with Brian Carney for business advice or just to share a beer, follow him on Instagram at riversedgeadvisors_LLC.